are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Weird Science Comics YouTube channel. I'm going to be reviewing Amazing Spider-Man number 60, the end of Zeb Wells' reign of terror, some will say, but the end of his run. And if you're expecting me to get that angry, I'm not going to make promises, but I don't think I'm going to get that angry. This issue, well, not good. It really is kind of a nothingness. It ends up, it's not that I get mad at what's in the issue. What's in the issue is fine, I guess. But it's what isn't in the issue. And what isn't in the issue is any sort of oomph, any sort of weight to it, any sort of feeling that things as they are supposedly getting tied up make you think back at these other 59 issues and say, oh my God, what a great run. It isn't a great run. Most people will agree that it's been really, really bad. And this kind of ends it. And thank God for a lot of people. But again, it's more of how it ends it in a way that there isn't anything going on. You ended up having Zeb Wells leaving the book, supposedly, at issue 54. They asked him to hang on a bit, probably to let Joe Kelly and Justina Ireland get some things ready for their run. So you end up having 6 issues to tie up a bunch of things. It was centered on Tombstone. And when we get into this, nothing really changed. And the idea of resetting things at the end of a run, that happens a lot. You're going to end up having to put some of the toys back in the toy box. You're going to set some things up for the next run, the next creative team. And not even just set things up, but kind of giving them a free and clear, clean slate. You don't have to deal with my stuff. There is one thing in here that's kind of funny that you end up, Zeb Wells doesn't want to put away. But the way that he puts things away are kind of just going back a bunch of issues to how they were put away originally, showing that he really did want to leave at 54 and had no other story in mind. But this is Amazing Spider-Man number 60. There's a bunch of stories. It's oversized, but the main story is Zeb Wells writing and John Romita Jr. on pencils. And this is going to deal first off with Tombstone and the whole trial. Now, Tombstone was let out on bail, and then he went through New York City ripping it apart, trying to kill his daughter Janice and also fighting Spider-Man. So there's an issue there. But when we get into this, you have a tough judge, and I just did air quotes, you didn't see those, but he ends up saying, hey, Spider-Man did a bunch of bullcrap, so did Tombstone, and in the meantime, Janice, Tombstone's daughter, who was the crazy star witness for the prosecution, she has gone underground. They don't know where she is. She has disappeared. So because of that, the judge dismisses the case. Odd, but it does make sense, I guess, by the end, because Peter and Jennifer She-Hulk, they're like, what the heck? How could this happen? And they leave, and they're kind of down in the dumps here. And Tombstone comes up and says, hey, Peter Parker, I want you to take a ride with me. Well, Peter's done that, and he doesn't want to do that anymore. He doesn't want to get beat up again. So he says, no way. But Tombstone says, I have a message for Spider-Man. The message is, I paid off the judge. I ended up making this happen to kind of prove his point that it doesn't matter if you're good, bad, or whatever. Might rules. He has the money. He paid off the judge, but says, tell Spider-Man he didn't really lose. And says, tell him thank you. He'll know what I mean. Now, the thank you is that when Peter was fighting, or Spider-Man was fighting Tombstone, he kept trying to stop him from killing Janice and said, I'm doing this for you, at the last second before they both passed out. But the idea of all this is that Tombstone now realizes, oh my God, Spider-Man saved me. So what does this do? What is this, the idea? The idea is at the end of Gang War, you ended up having Tombstone, who had teamed up with Spider-Man. Now he's going to kill him because everybody saw that. I got to prove my deal. I'm Kingpin now. I'm going to do this. Now, what this does nothing. All this does is kind of go where, okay, still Kingpin. He's out on the ship, but he's not mad at Spider-Man. That's all it does. That's all that happened out of all these issues, the fights, this, Janice, all that happened is the idea that Tombstone is no longer mad at Spider-Man. And really, it doesn't matter. It'll end up when they meet again. They'll just fight. Now, with that, Janice being missing, what's going on with Randy. There's a lot of loose ends. Every loose end that Zeb Wells thinks that he ties up, he just lets 10 lie that are more interesting in my mind. But that ends that part with Tombstone. So from there, we go off to Aunt May and a big attack by Flint Marko, who's back as Sandman. You end up having Peter have to pretend he's going to go off. Oh my God, I got to go get Spider-Man. Spider-Man shows up and fights Flint with the help of May at one point. But the big play here is that Aunt May, being face to face with Spider-Man, says, I want you to leave Peter alone. Please leave my nephew alone. He's going to die. He's getting hurt. Well, it looks like at one point, Spider-Man's going to say, I'm Peter. He doesn't get quite that far, but the whole just play is that Spider-Man says, listen, I would love to, tell Peter to not help me or whatever, but that doesn't work. You know he's a good guy. You know that he's going to help anyway. So what does that do? Nothing. It does nothing. It just has Aunt May come out of nowhere and say, hey, I want you to stop this. She hasn't done much in this whole run. So there you go. That ties up something. I don't know. But then we go off to tie off another end that I don't think anybody really cares about. I like White Rabbit, and I like her friend Kareem, who's not even in this. He's mentioned. Kareem is the guy with the bullseye, kind of, I don't know, with a serrated knife like carved into his head. But you end up having White Rabbit go off to Tombstone and say, hey, you set me up. You wanted me to kill my friend. I don't like that. He says, well, I knew you wouldn't do that. And then she says, that makes it worse. Me and Kareem are out. Again, something that I'm sure everybody was waiting with bated breath to see if White Rabbit and Kareem would stay around with Tombstone. It means nothing at all. And then you end with Peter and Aunt May eating pizza, talking a bit about Shay, the kind of current girlfriend of Peter, and how that the whole Sandman's a dick. That's it. That's it. That is pretty much the end of the main story, the end of the run, which again shows you that not much happened. There's a lot of other things that people were worried talking about. We'll get to the other stories because there is a bit with Paul. Unfortunately, doesn't get hit by a bus, but he's there, and things like Ben Reilly, stuff like that. But this run just didn't have anything. And so by the end, you see that Zeb Wells is struggling to even to have something that is worthy of an ending issue to tie things up. And speaking of which, if you did read issue 54, the end of the Goblin saga that they tried to do once again, they did it a couple months ago, but you end up having, that didn't tie up anything either. It just ended. So I just think Zeb Wells wants out. But you end up where that ends the deal. It's a nice little scene where you have Aunt May and Peter eating some pizza, New York pizza, obviously the best pizza there is. I don't want to hear anything about that deep dish nonsense they have in Chicago. Don't go there. It is a pizza pie, but it's like a pie. You can't eat that. You can't just get a slice. Get out of here. But we then continue, and you're going to see some of the other creatives come in and join Zeb Wells and have this deal of, okay, we have Ed McGuinness. Well, wherever Ed McGuinness shows up, Rec Rap is soon to follow. So we have Doctor's Orders by Zeb Wells and Ed McGuinness, and it's Peter taking Rec Rap to a hospital, and this doctor is just the worst doctor. First looks like Doc Ock a bit, but is just ending up like, hey, why are you bringing this thing here? Animals, what is he, your pet? I'm like, come on now. Come on, this guy's a jerk. He really is. But there's Rec Rap. People like Rec Rap. He gets out. If I say his name fast enough, I'll really mess it up. But he goes off to fly off on the Goblin glider that was stuck in him. And he is going to be old Rec Rap. And then it says, hey, Joe, use Rec Rap. You have to use them. It's kind of a funny idea there, but it's just what it is. And I'm sure that people who like Rec Rap more than me might get a little bit of a kick to see the Ed McGuinness art on that. But then we move off to Zeb Wells and Todd Nauck doing Team Up Part 2. And this has old Mary Jane. This is going to be where I think a lot of people will get a bit upset with this issue, hoping maybe Paul would disappear, hoping maybe MJ would come to her senses and leave Paul. But you end up having jackpot, everybody's favorite hero, fighting what is the dichromator. It's a villain that ends up dealing with colors and prisms, ends up making a bunch of various colored Spider-Men as he ends up getting in the fight. And there is the joke, again, air quotes, of these things saying, I'm the friendly neighborhood yellow-green. I'm the friendly neighborhood green-black. It just keeps going. Peter gets annoyed. So do I. I'm with you. So you end up fighting an MJ and Spider-Man fighting off this villain. Kind of cool enough. And then it just leads to MJ and Peter realizing, oh my God, we're late for our double date. Shay and Paul are at the restaurant already. I had said issues back. Kind of the play here, which I think would have been the best way to do this, is that as they go to get to the restaurant, because they're late, MJ being late realizes, oh my God, this is what Peter dealt with all this time. And when they're going up, they get to the restaurant, they look in the window, and there are Paul and Shay deeply in love, looking at each other's eyes. And MJ and Peter just say, hey, you want to go get a slice of pizza? Meaning New York pizza, because Chicago, keep the nonsense. So that would have been perfect for me. Don't go full out. Just have them see them getting along. Oh, my God, they look so cute together. Hey, let's let them be for now. Let's go off. At least we'd have a little bit of, oh, my God, MJ and Peter, they're going to get together. We know they won't. Nick Lowe, the group editor, he's what most people in France call a dick, and has even been really combative with fans about this as well. So it's not going to happen, unfortunately, but it would have been a cool little deal. Give us some hope. I guess some people would be like, why? Why give us hope? But when they get there, they go in, and right before they go in, you end up having Peter say, hey, I'll always come for you, MJ. She says, thank you for coming and getting me in that other dimension where I had these kids that disappeared with Paul and all this nonsense. And she says, well, thank you. He says, I'll always come for you, MJ. And then she kind of goes and says, eventually. So we will see. Again, that's not as good as what I'm saying. See that jerk up Paul and Shay. And Shay kind of gets lost in the shuffle. I don't mind her. She's okay, but, she's not MJ. So they go in and sit down, and they're making little jokes while they're eating. And then a big play that we'll get to in another story is outside of this restaurant that looks like, I guess, a diner, not a real fancy place, but you end up where Ben Reilly is looking in, kind of pissed off, even though you only see his hand, but it looks like a pissed off hand. So that ends that. Paul is still around. Again, that doesn't mean that anybody's going to deal with him. The way that they're playing off this whole next deal with the 8 deaths of Spider-Man, I don't think we're going to deal much with Paul. So eventually, maybe we'll just get back to something, and everybody will forget about Paul. He'll just disappear like those kids. He should have. He should have just disappeared with those kids. It would have been easy. And have MJ upset. Now, again, just before I go, I do want to mention the idea of this, though, kind of is more upsetting when you think about how they're dealing with this breakup, kind of not being together. There's no conflict at all. There's no issues, problems, nothing. They're so happy for each other to be with other people that you never really get anything out of it. If you would have had Peter really mad and trying to date, then you get a little more story, conflict, all that. But it's like everybody's so happy that the love of their lives is off with somebody else and doing this. This happens in comics now. Anytime a breakup, there's no real breakup. It's nonsense, but that is that. Still Paul around, and it's a bit of disappointment. Then we go off to the next little bit, and this is really quick, with Zeb Wells and Paola Rivera on art. And it is just that every year, Spider-Man gets together with Wolverine. They have a little bit of a fight to kind of commemorate the birthday, though I thought that you had Wolverine kind of getting ripped apart and getting sent like real bloody body piece birthday card things from Sabretooth this past year. But here we go. We'll just play it up. He ended up going and saying, oh, I got to take a moment, goes off to New York and has a drink and a fight with old Spider-Man. So that ends. It's really nothing. If anything, that was just filler. So then from there, we then go to Zeb Wells and Patrick Gleason, and that usually is going to be some Beyond stuff, and it is Ben Reilly stuff. Ben and Peter come face to face, and again, when this could have been the idea of Ben saying, hey, I'm good. I know that you weren't at fault. I mean, the whole thing of his memories and things with this Beyond stuff, if you've been reading since then, it never was Peter's fault. It was always the Beyond Corporation. They ended up taking the memories. They ended up screwing with them. But then Ben was so mad at Peter. That was part of the Dark Web stuff, all that nonsense. But you would hope that this is just a little bit to go with Ben saying, hey, I'm good. I know that you tried. I'm going to stay out of your way. I'm not trying to be you. It's not that. It just ends up pretty much reminding you how Ben feels that he felt before at the end of Dark Web, at the end of the little bit where he showed up in this run and everything else. You know, his own book. All this stuff is just, hey, I'm pretty good with you, Peter. I'm really not. Like, even when he's talking, Peter is so oblivious at times. Like, hey, really great talking to you. Rooting for you, Ben. See you later. And you realize, no, Ben is not fine. I don't know what you're looking at. I don't know what you think. Again, this is a guy who thinks that Paul's a rootin' tootin' great guy, so Peter's a little off right now. But the idea that he just leaves and thinks that Ben's fine, just to see Ben then go, and then we see him outside that diner, the same scene, and says, watch him wait for my chance to take it all back. So anything he said about, I'm fine, I'm having my own memories, you know, me and Dean, we're good. We're going to do these things now. It's not that. Him and Hallows Eve are on the prowl, it seems, and he will get things back. So with all that, that is it for Zeb Wells' run. So he didn't tie anything up. He just ended up saying, oh, remember this? I'm going to do a little thing, but it's going to stay the same. Hey, you know that, Paul? Oh, they ate at the diner. Oh, my God, what a great meal. Oh, you bet right. Oh, he's still mad. Oh, Tombstone. Oh, he's just not mad at Peter, but he's still... Ay. Again, I'm not mad because the stories themselves are like, okay, but they just didn't mean anything. So we go to a last bit, though. You have a Joe Kelly story to end. Joe Kelly with Mark Buckingham on art just to set up their run. It's okay. It's very, very narration heavy, and you get a dual narration. You have Peter talking at one point as he's kind of fighting these guys. It's override. It's not, you know, anything crazy or great. I wouldn't say that I read this and thought, oh my God, this is awesome and I can't wait. But then at the end you see Doom, Dr. Doom, Sorcerer Supreme Doom. He has his eye on Peter, and this is what sets up the 8 deaths of Spider-Man. He says Spider-Man will die for the Covenant. He will become the champion for the Covenant. He will die again and again and again for them. Bada bing, bada boom. So says Doom. The end. And that ends the whole deal. Again, overall, it was a nothing issue that should have had something. It should have had something in here that we at least said, oh my God, yeah, that really tied that up, or that was clever, or whatever. But when did we have that at any time in this run? So I don't know what the hell I was expecting. But I expected something, didn't really get it. But again, it wasn't bad what was there. It just was what wasn't. And so with that, I'm just going to give it a flat 5 out of 10. The art's pretty good throughout. I could even go a little higher, but I just as a whole deal of ending a run and really revealing once again, for the last bunch of issues, we've seen this, that he really didn't have any story past what he wanted to tell. Nick Lowe ends up asking him to stay on. He stays on and just kind of meanders, limps to this ending, and didn't have any because I guess he thought he tied everything up. You know, I guess. I don't know. But the whole run itself, just quickly, it just wasn't good. You had stuff like, you know, Kamal Khan dying for no real reason being in this book, except that it's a bigger book than anything she would be in. You had that. You had, again, Dark Web, nonsense, gang war, terrible. All that stuff all rolled up into one. People would say, and do say, and I'll even say, that the beginning with Tombstone was the best part of it. But even then, seeing what he ends with now, and even the stuff in gang war with Tombstone was ridiculous. So overall, this was not a good run. I'm not really blowing minds saying that, but we're going to go on. I know a lot of people, I've seen people not as excited as I hope for the Joe Kelly / Justina Ireland run, but we'll see. We'll see how it is. I hope that people will, if they ended up not reading the Zeb Wells stuff, maybe they'll come back and give that a chance. I certainly will. I'll be talking about all those issues, but that's it. That is it. Thanks, everybody. Let me know what you thought of the issue in the comments below. All of that jazz, and I will talk to you all later.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.